So, budgets. I know that's a scary subject for most people, but I promise you, by the end of this video, you're going to feel much better about budgeting. So when we think about budgets, a lot of us get some level of anxiety, probably because we've been taught to view a budget the same way we view dieting. A diet is limiting calories that you take into your body. They're miserable and nobody likes them. And a budget is supposed to be the same thing, but for your money. Spend less, spend less, spend less. When in reality, that's a terrible way to look at a budget. Think about it more as a lifestyle. And that's probably the reason that most Americans have the same success with a budget as they do with a diet, because they're not thinking long-term with it. In 2014, a man by the name of Ronald Read passed away. Ronald Read had lived by any measure a pretty average life. He was in the military for a time, and after leaving the military was a mechanic and gas station attendant before retiring and working part-time as a janitor. But when Ronald Read died, his family and friends were shocked to learn that he was worth somewhere in the neighborhood of $8 million. That's extraordinary, especially for a man who earned the income that Ronald Read did. And yet you can think of celebrity after celebrity, entertainers, sports figures, all of the above, who had enormous incomes and yet wind up completely broke. Now, I know this is an oversimplification, but what was the difference between those two individuals? What it comes down to is how they managed their money. Now, if you don't have an income or you have a very low income, that's a different problem entirely. And maybe we'll do a video on that one day. But if you're an average person earning a median income, like I would suspect most people watching this video are, you have the ability to earn tremendous wealth, probably a lot more than you think. But here's the deal. None of that is going to happen without a plan. People view budgets as something that limits, when in actuality, a budget is just a plan that enables you to reach your financial goals. This isn't your mom or dad or boss telling you how to spend your money. This is you choosing your financial goals and prioritizing every dollar that comes into your command. You're an adult and no one else gets to tell you what to do with your money. That's great freedom, but it's also a great responsibility. So you have to ask yourself what kind of financial future you want and work back to where you are now. I can promise you this, if you don't have a plan, you're not just likely to spend everything you have, it's likely that you will overspend. You remember the celebrities we were talking about earlier? What's the deal? Why is it that some of them have to declare bankruptcy entirely? It's because not only did they spend everything that they made, they spend everything that they made and then some. They didn't have a plan. And because they didn't have a plan, they didn't have anything to tell them no. And when you constantly tell yourself yes, you're going to wind up in trouble. But a budget isn't just something that tells you no. A budget gives you permission to spend on the things that you care about while cutting back on areas that you don't care as much about. Everyone's going to be different when it comes to these things. That's why we call it personal finance. Your budget isn't going to look like my budget, even if we have similar incomes, because we're going to have different financial goals, and that's okay. You need to answer what is important to you. Again, saying no so that you can say yes to things that matter to you is good. Saying no to some small purchases so that you can say yes to a family vacation where you're going to build memories is a wonderful thing. Saying no to a few luxuries today so that you can have a wonderful retirement in the future is a great thing. But those things only happen when you have a plan. Again, I don't want you to think of a budget as someone telling you no. Think of a budget as you are the CEO of your life, choosing the direction that you'd like to go. So now that we've gotten all of that out of the way, how do you even make a budget? What does a budget even look like? Do you have to know how to use Excel to build a budget? Listen, if you are wanting to make a budget, now is the greatest, easiest, most convenient time in the history of the world. There are numerous budgeting apps that you can sign up for free that will help you build the budget that you'd like to, but more on that later. Right now, we want to take a look at making our first budget. If you have never tracked your expenses before, what you want to do is sit down and pull all of your bank statements, all of your credit card statements, any cash that you have spent in the last few weeks, maybe month or two, pull those all together, and you're going to look at what you are spending currently. If you've never tracked your expenses before, prepare yourself. It could get rough. Remember when we said most people don't have a plan for their finances? Well, if you've never sat down to track out your expenses before, it's likely that you are spending a tremendous amount of money in certain areas that you don't even realize. But when you pull all of your expenses together and take a look, you're going to find things that you can eliminate quickly. Like that Netflix subscription you signed up for the first free month and didn't realize they have been charging you for the past 6 months. You might not even watch Netflix. So now that you've pulled together all of your statements and transactions, what you want to do is make some basic categories: food, clothing, shelter, miscellaneous, savings. You get the point. Whatever categories you want to track. Then what you're going to want to do is go through each item line by line and categorize it. Then when you're done with that, add everything up and see how much you spent in the previous month. The total number may surprise you, and the total number by category may surprise you even more. And this may be a difficult exercise, but it is a good wake-up call, especially if you've not been keeping track of your finances. So the next step is going to be making a plan. Now that you've seen what you have spent over the past month or two, what you want to do is say, rather than letting life happen and purchasing whatever whenever, I'm going to make a plan. Take your most basic expenses that shouldn't change from month to month. This is going to be your rent or mortgage, your car payment if you have it, insurance. What else? Maybe I should pull up my budget. Any subscriptions that you have, and you're going to put them on your budget first. These are monthly items that don't change. Then next you want to put things that are likely not going to change much, but may fluctuate from month to month. For example, groceries or gas, maybe your utilities. Maybe what you want to do is look back on the previous 12 months if you have access and see what an average amount you spent on utilities would be. And now that you have those basic fundamental things, you can start to look in other categories. And if you add all of those categories together and you are still under your monthly income, congratulations. For the first time maybe, you have a plan to live on less than you make. But now comes the hard part, sticking to the budget. Here's the deal when it comes to budgeting. You need a tool that is going to be the most convenient for you to use. Because if you don't know how to use Excel, you are not likely to stick to a budget if you're trying to track things in Excel. You might not like Excel. You might have a life, and that's okay. I don't want you to feel like you have to be put into this budget box by people who are finance nerds, all right? There are a plethora of apps that you can use, some of them free and some of them paid, to track expenses. A few that come to mind are EveryDollar by Ramsey Solutions, or You Need a Budget, the budgeting app Mint, and a ton more. And it may take you trying out each of these for a while before you find what works for you. And the fact is, most of them have a free tier where you are entering the transactions manually, but if you pay a subscription for some of them, they will actually be linked to your bank account and can automatically enter in your transactions and categorize them all by itself. And I know it sounds weird coming to a finance video on saving and being told to add an extra $10 a month subscription, but here's the way to look at it. If that $10 a month enables you to live on your plan, you could potentially be saving hundreds or thousands of dollars over the next several years and building the financial future you want. That's worth $10 a month to me. So now it's time for the real world experience. Take the budget that you have built, put it into whatever budgeting app you have chosen, and do your best to stay within the parameters that you have set. But give yourself a little bit of grace. It might take a few months of doing this for you to be able to hone in each category. And remember that your budget may change due to needs. Our gas budget looks very different this year than it did a couple of years ago. Same with our groceries. Inflation is real and it has changed the way that our budget works. But remember, you want to be working on a zero-based budget, which means if you add money to one category, you have to take away money from another category. One thing that we didn't talk about is savings rate. How much of your income should you be saving? If you are on a budget and you have covered your basic needs, when giving yourself a little bit of breathing room for fun, there's probably more money than you thought that you could be using to work for you. So now that you have that budget, you can take that money that you would have been spending on Amazon orders at 3 in the morning and now putting that into your emergency savings, or putting that into a Roth IRA as an investment for your retirement, or saving for a future expense that you know is coming up. Whatever it is that you do with your newfound freedom because of your budget, you 1 year from now are going to be so glad that you took the time and effort to make a financial plan. You can do it. You can have the future that you want by changing little things today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to the channel. We're going to hopefully be doing a video like this every week for as long as we can. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks.